What's up, guys? Welcome to Movie Importance Flashback Reviews, where we take movies from our past, break them down, tell you what we think about them. As always, if you like what you see, remember to rate, subscribe, check out the YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter. Email mlapolo1138 to comment if you have any questions. So, once again, we continue our quest for Avengers Endgame. This is an interesting movie because it's the second movie of 2017, which of course is Spider-Man Homecoming. This was a movie that was directed by John Watts, who had literally only done a couple of movies prior. He had a movie called Cop Car with Kevin Bacon, which got him this role of director for the Spider-Man movie because it was interesting, it was intense, it was a cool little, thriller movie about two kids that steal a cop car. And so we cannot talk about. Let's just go straight into the interesting production of this movie. So 2016 rolls around, or actually 2015 rolls around, we get a breaking news story. Spider-Man is going to be in the MCU. That wouldn't be really that surprising because it's a Marvel character, but just like I said in the Civil War video, Sony owns the rights to the Marvel version of Spider-Man. And so nobody can use it but Sony because Marvel had gone almost bankrupt. They sold off their characters and Spider-Man went to Sony. So when Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige made this crazy deal to put Spider-Man in at least 6 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it blew everybody's mind. If you're a huge Spider-Man fan and he's going to be in the Avengers, he's going to be in Civil War, which is like one of his biggest stories for Spider-Man. It's like something like your geek heart screams because it's cool. And then when he pops up in Civil War, it's one of the best moments of that movie. Well, they decided that the next movie for Spider-Man was, of course, going to be Spider-Man Homecoming, which is kind of a cool play on the fact that Spider-Man is coming home to the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Marvel in general in films. And this movie is actually really fun. It's really good. It's one of the best movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though it's a Sony owned property. And it brings back Tom Holland as Peter Parker. He is a nebbish kid. He is book smart. He is everything you want out of a Spider-Man. He's like the perfect Spider-Man slash Peter Parker because if you ever watch any of the other Spider-Man movies, the Tobey Maguire is a great Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield is a great Peter Parker, and they never coexisted because, one was either better than the other. Well, this, like I said, just combines everything that's great and makes this one of the better Spider-Man movies in general. And it takes place in high school, which is really cool. The whole movie takes place in high school. It's a kid who is very optimistic about wanting to be an Avenger, but he has to learn that being an Avenger is not about the suit. It's about who you are. It's about who you represent. It's the heart inside of you, which Tony Stark tells him when he takes the suit away later in the movie. But this movie also has Michael Keaton in it as Adrian Toomes, as we know, who we know as the Vulture. And this is one of the best villains in the MCU, which is crazy. Michael Keaton's always been a great actor. He's a great villain, playing Beetlejuice. He's just that guy that he has a lot of charisma off screen and on screen. You always want to see him in a movie because he's always going to be fun. He's always going to be energetic. He's always going to be, just the guy that could play any character and just nail it and, hit it out of the park. And his character has a lot of interesting ideas behind it because he's not a straight up villain. He's a guy that's trying to provide for his family. And doing that, he was doing work after the Battle of New York. He was, one of the Shatari cruise ships, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what it's called. They were scrounging it, making like they were fixing things. They were, scrounging and taking it to the dump or whatever, or wherever it needs to go. Stark and his lawyers. Tony Stark's not there at the moment, but Tyne Daly, who plays his main lawyer, basically says, "You guys are out. This is property now of Tony Stark and Stark Industries." And this sets Adrian Toomes on a path of just basically, being a outlaw, being a guy who's stealing stuff. And he's doing it, like I said, to provide for his family. And he's not overall a bad guy. Yes, he's doing bad things, but he's a guy that you have an emotional reaction to because he's such a fun character. He has emotional depth that not all the no like hardly any Marvel villains have had because he doesn't kill on purpose like Logan Marshall Green, who plays the first Shocker character. He thinks it's an anti-gravity gun, but he ends up like disintegrating the guy. He's like, whatever. But he is not a guy that kills discriminately. He's a guy that just wants to screw the system that has screwed him and the people that he works, that work for him. And it's an interesting thing to have because you don't get that in Marvel movies. You get characters that are just like, I'm going to take over the world and I'm going to destroy everything and blah, 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 blah. And that's what kind of sets Thanos apart later on in Avengers Infinity War, even though I think he's a complete abusive, father. But so Peter Parker has basically, with Civil War, he has done that. He is taken back to Queens where he lives at, and he is restless. He is bored. He wants to know when the next Avengers big battle is going to be, and so he goes around the city, basically protecting the people in his neighborhood. He's like the Daredevil version of Queens, where he protects that borough and so on and so forth. And there's not much there. There's not much to protect. I think he saves a bicycler that gets his bicycle stolen. And he is basically not only is Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. popping up in a Sony movie, but because of the deal, they can play back and forth. So, like I said, Peter Parker's bored. He has a friend who's played by Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned. And of course, Jacob, Ned's character, finds out that Peter Parker is who he is, and they have this really cool, bonding friendship because they've been friends for years and so on and so forth. And how it plays out throughout the movie is, Ned is kind of like his sidekick or Oracle, if you want to put it that way. But like I said, Tony Stark is, he's that mentor. He's basically put Happy Hogan in the role of protector, of making sure that Peter Parker doesn't do anything stupid, which is really cool because he gives a lot of stuff to do for Jon Favreau, who kind of is there, but he's never given like a huge amount of role because not only was he directing the first two Iron Man movies, but he's busy doing other stuff like The Lion King and The Jungle Book and so on and so forth. So the interactions between Peter Parker and Happy Hogan are some of the best moments in the movie because Jon Favreau is he's a very fun actor to watch as well as a director. But he's in the middle of trying to get everything out of Avengers Tower and transport it to upstate New York where the new Avengers facility is. And so he can't be bothered by what Peter Parker's doing, even though he's keeping track of him, which is really funny because Peter Parker is doing all kinds of, things. He is trying to impress this girl who's played by Laura Harrier, who plays Liz. And she's part of the decathlon that Peter Parker is involved with. And, every time he tries to impress her, there's another incident involving the Vulture and his gang. There's Aaron Davis, who's played by Donald Glover in this movie. Aaron Davis, of course, is the Prowler, who's Miles Morales' uncle. He pops up, and there's like a deal going on behind the scenes where they're testing the guns out, and Peter Parker sees that from the distance because he's at a party trying to like impress everyone, because Flash Thompson, who was kind of a dick to Peter Parker, he is like, "Oh, you'll never show up with Peter or with Spider-Man," and blah blah blah, and same thing with Liz. And so he goes after them, and he basically uncovers the fact that they're using Adrian Toomes and this company are using the Shatari tech to steal. So there's that whole sequence, and then of course there's the sequence in Washington D.C. where Peter Parker travels to take down a heist that's going to happen, and all these kind of sequences are happening, and it's basically keeping him from protecting his own borough or city because he's getting a little too over his head. And that's what makes this Peter Parker so amazing because he's a guy that really cares about protecting, but he's inexperienced. You've seen most Spider-Mans, you see it like the video game of the Spider-Man game that Insomniac put out. He's an experienced guy. He's an experienced Spider-Man. He is capable of taking care of the city of New York and the borough that he lives in, and he's able to take care of May Parker. And it's just he is just a guy who can do things right, but with a inexperienced Peter Parker slash Spider-Man, it opens up a world of possibilities of a guy who's gonna fail. There's a boat sequence where he follows Adrian Toomes and the guy who plays a Scorpion, and there's that whole sequence with the boat. Basically the thing that Vulture uses to basically rob and blow up people, it causes the boat to split in half, which causes the boat to, Spider-Man has to like put it together with his webbing, and it shows that he is not able to protect people like he wants to because he has to learn how to do it. It's what makes the movie so great in its essence of a Marvel movie, because Marvel characters should be flawed. Tony Stark's a flawed character. Captain America is a flawed character. Every character is a flawed character because they have to learn, they have to grow, they have to be better than their suit of armor. It's interesting. It's just interesting to see what they're doing here. And it's cool to see that they've created a Spider-Man that everybody can relate to, because everybody's been through like this in high school. Everybody's either been the popular one or the non-popular one. But some other characters that pop up in here, Zendaya plays Michelle, who we learned is MJ. But I like her character. I never thought about this until I was rewatching it. She's always seems to be around Peter Parker everywhere he's at. He gets detention, or he's in the cafeteria or the decathlon. She seems to always be around him, and the way if you really pay attention to what's going on, if you watch it kind of play out, it's really interesting to see that she's attracted to Peter. She really has something for him, and she's like hiding behind her facade, and it's just really cool to watch. Just watch the moments with her near Peter. She's really kind of paying attention to him, and I think she really likes him. And it's going to play out in Far From Home, at least from what the trailer shows. But yeah, it's just really cool to see stuff like that. Just to see that this is a movie about a high schooler and high school kids, and everybody who's in this is a high school kid outside the teachers and Adrian Toombs and the Tinkerer and all that good stuff. But other characters that pop up, like I said, Bokeem Woodbine plays the other Shocker character after Logan Marshall Green gets killed, and he's fun in the movie because he doesn't have a big part, but he has, when he fights Peter Parker in the bus lot of the school, that's a really cool scene because Peter Parker can't get his web shooters to work. And there's the end sequence, which is Spider-Man is okay. So Happy Hogan has loaded everything onto the ship or the plane that's going to take off to the Avengers facility. Adrian Tubes is going to steal stuff off that plane, and it's cloaked. The whole plane cloaks itself to kind of mask so people can't see that it's there. Well, Adrian Toombs is there, and then Spider-Man has followed behind him, and they have this nice little battle sequence on the plane, which crash lands, I think, on Coney Island or whatever that fairgrounds that there is. And Peter Parker, instead of most Marvel characters, Peter Parker saves Adrian Toombs, which I kind of think gives Adrian Toombs the perspective of Peter Parker is not a bad guy. He's just there to protect people. And when the mid credit scene comes up and the guy who plays Scorpion is like, "Where is Spider Man?" You probably know who Spider Man is. Like, I don't know. If I knew who he was, I probably would have killed him myself. And that's an interesting. Like I said, that's why Adrian Toombs is not. He's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. He's not just going to straight up kill Peter Parker. And of course, Peter Parker saves Laura Harrier's character, which we find out is the daughter of Adrian Toombs, which was one of the biggest moments in the movie because it's so sudden and it's so just kind of like holy crap. Because when Michael Keaton opens up the door to the house, because there's the whole prom situation, Peter Parker's like, oh crap, and the way that plays out to the eventual point where Adrian Toombs figures out Peter Parker is Spider-Man is really intense and really crazy, and just stuff like that is just amazing. But this movie overall is just like I said, it's fantastic. It's a fun little ride. It's not the best Spider-Man. I still think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie, just for what it was doing. But you can't deny what Tom Holland's doing here. You can't deny what of course, once again, Robert Downey Jr. is doing here. John Favreau. The Jacob Batalon is doing, Zendaya, Laura Harrier, all these characters. There's a whole crap load of people in this movie that I haven't even mentioned because it's just a lot of people to take in. It's like most Marvel movies in Phase 3 where there's just a lot going on, but it's still simple enough that you can understand the story. So that's really cool. I like that. I like the tech that's being used. I like the fact that Spider-Man is basically Iron Man. but in Spider-Man form, his suit has all these cool little pieces and gadgets, and when he starts learning how to use the different things, it's really fun. And then of course at the end, we see the Iron Spider suit, which ends up playing out in Avengers Infinity War. But this is a nice little film. I'm interested to see what Far From Home's going to do. I like the fact that this movie's written by the Game Night directors, and I just think it's a movie worth watching. It's in the top 10 of Marvel movies, so definitely check it out. But I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting, but it's a lot. It's a good movie, and it's a lot to talk about. So, but there you go. That's gonna be my take on Spider-Man: Homecoming. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below what you think of Spider-Man: Homecoming. Do you think it's better than most of the Marvel movies? Do you think it's worse? I'd be interested to know. Tell me what your favorite character is. But otherwise, we'll see you on the next video. Peace out.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. Find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these 2 videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.